Welcome in everyone to They Are Not From Philly podcast. I'm Ad from Wales and I'm with my guys Corey from Columbus and Drew from Westchester. And as you can see, it's been a bit of a nice week for Philly sports. We've been a little bit spoiled, I suppose, than what we have in the last few weeks with obviously the struggles the Phillies have had. And so, Eagles, they had a really good draft night. Howie was up to his old tricks again, and had a really good draft, to say like an A plus. The Flyers knocked out the Penguins in the playoffs, and they're off to they're on to the second round. The Sixers, they've got Boston in Game 7 tonight. That's massive. Nobody sort of expected the Sixers to get this far against the Celtics. So, I mean, if we can get past the Celtics tonight, that's a massive victory for the Sixers. And obviously the Phillies are on a 4-0 start under the new Don Mattingly era. So we got a lot to discuss, boys. So how are you both doing? How do you guys feel about the draft? From what we've seen of Mackay Lemon, he was looking good in some of the little clips on Twitter and Instagram yesterday. He looks bigger than I thought. I know he's on like the full pads, but he does look like quite a physical guy. So obviously that's good news for if AJ Brown is finally traded, that we got a nice physical player. And from the highlights and stuff, he does look like like he's gonna catch contested balls, and he's not afraid to get hurt. So Drew, I'll start with you. How do you feel about Howie's draft night?
Yeah, I thought Howie did really well. I thought it was a good reminder that, the team, that the organization is being run well. You feel like you kind of take all those punches in late, January around, no one wants the coordinator job. AJ's going to be traded, Nick this, Nick that, lose some guys in free agency. And it was for me, it was kind of just that, like, grounding thought of like, okay, like they still have a good process here, they can be contenders. I thought he had a really good night. I like the Lemon pick. I mean, I know I talked to you guys about Denzel Boston. I was kind of convinced going in that I didn't think Lemon was gonna be there. I saw him go in the teens or so. So I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be a really. I think he's going to be a really good player for us. What one thing I go back to is I think Howie has always had a good relationship with Lincoln Riley, so I feel like he probably got a real solid scouting report from him.
Mm.
The guy, just he seems like a dog in the way of having a feel for big moments. I put a stat out last week. A lot of its touchdowns last year at USC, one possession games, fourth quarter. Just seems like a big time player. I think choosing to wear number 9. We can talk about that. I mean, that's a bold choice
Yeah, that's
in a,
crazy.
in and of itself. I think when you combine that with Stowers, with the Grenard trade, I thought they had a really good couple days and kind of raised what the ceiling could be on their season if things go right.
Yeah, how you feeling, Cole?
I mean, I kind of agree with Drew. So I didn't think that Lemon would be there when we picked, but I mean, obviously when I did my prediction, I said that we were going to trade up and take a receiver. I thought that they might have traded up and try to get like Carnell Tate, but I'm like just as happy as getting Lemon. I got Lemon. I had Lemon as the second best receiver in the draft. Like, I not that I wasn't a Jordan Tyson fan, just like with the injuries and stuff like that, that kind of just
Mm.
like made me nervous. But I'm excited with the pick. Obviously, I think that we can all, I can go ahead and say it, realize that AJ Brown is definitely on the way out with the additions that the Eagles has made this offseason. Hollywood Brown, trading for Dontavius Wicks, drafting Lemon in
Mm.
the first round. You know what I'm saying? You have Devontae Smith. You go out and you draft Eli Stowers in the second round. You bring back Dallas Goddard. Like, I think that it's almost inevitable that AJ Brown is not going to be an Eagle this year. But I'm just excited to see what Sean Mannion can do you're giving him a lot of weapons and how he's able to use them in the passing game. Like obviously Lemon's not like a burner. He's not about to take the top off defense. He's not like a Hollywood Brown. He's not like a physical specimen like a AJ Brown. But I think what he can do in between the numbers, kind of like what Jackson Smith and Jigba kind of did for the Seahawks, and like Jaron Reed kind of with Green Bay, or even the most common comparison with St. Brown. I think that he can be that kind of receiver, open up things for Devontae on the outside and Wicks in the
Yeah.
outside, and then hopefully we can get our running back game back going this year. And I really like the pick.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting now because obviously, it depends on everyone, how like us as fans, like how we're going to look at it with Sean Mannion, because like you just said, he's got a really good range of weapons now. So we've heard all these things about Sean Mannion. He's quite creative, and everyone that's spoken about him in Green Bay and stuff are very high on him. So he's got everything that he needs there now to create a really good creative offense. It's going to be, the eyes are really going to be on him, Jalen and Nick, obviously, to get everything together and see what they can do with this offense, see how creative they can be. I don't think they're going to go, I don't think they're going to go too crazy in terms of trying to, do different things, because I don't think Jalen wants to necessarily be that, that fully creative. I think he will be open to adopting new things, because you're going to have to, because if AJ Brown isn't there, you've got this new rookie wide receiver who's got a lot of promise, a lot of talent. So you've got to be open to have him running routes and stuff that is going to work for him, that worked for him in college, so you can have that, establish that good connection. And like you said, it'll open up things for Devontae Smith, because we know Devontae can run the big routes, and Jalen can get the bombs to him and stuff. Devontae isn't the fastest receiver, but the way Devontae's able to get free and what have you, that's how he's able to create, Jalen's be able to get these daggers and all these big shots to him, so that's why it works. So I am really excited about Lemon, and he looks like a strong guy, even though he's small. Devontae was small and skinny, but he's tough as hell. He's taken some big shots, and he's got hurt and come back into games. So, it's, do you guys think, like, is it, like, obviously we didn't know this year, is it going to be like a transition year when, and all this? So is it a Super Bowl or bust year for the Eagles? Because I don't see a reason why they can't go to the Super Bowl. Obviously it's really early, we see how how the schedule shakes out and stuff. But I mean, with everyone that we've drafted, that guard that we've drafted from Miami, he is absolutely massive. He's a huge unit, so I imagine he's going to be used a lot. So is it Super Bowl or bust for the Eagles? So what do you guys think?
I'm still a little hesitant to go. I'm still a little hesitant to go there. Could I get there if reports and vibes seem good out of training camp? Maybe, but I think if you're going full on like Super Bowl or bust, like you're putting a lot of trust in Sean Mannion. Like there's not. I was trying to look up a stat on this, and I'm still kind of trying to verify it, but there's not a lot of like first year ever like in the NFL play callers who've like led an offense, led a team to a Super Bowl. Like, Kellen, it was his first year with the Eagles, but he had called plays before in Dallas, in I know the Chargers was 1 year and whatnot, but he had done the job before. The one example might have been like the 2012 Ravens with Jim Caldwell, who I think came in like middle of the year and like had been a coach, but I don't think called plays as a head coach in Indy, and then took over it there. So look, I think they raised like the number on what the win total can be. If things break right for them in the NFC, could they certainly make a deep run? Yeah, but I do think they're changing, at least trying to change a lot, where I can't get there this second to say Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah. How you feel, Cole?
I agree with Drew. Obviously, we're going to be doing a lot of agreeing today. So this is where I will say that it can get kind of like sticky for the Eagles. So I do think the Eagles have a Super Bowl defense, right? So I think like obviously
that's the thing.
Questions at the safety position. Like I think the addition to Tariq Woolen, the addition to Jonathan Grenard. Like, if they can figure out the safety position, I do think with Vic Fangio and a lot of those guys being the same, I do think they have a championship level defense. Now, this is where it can get, tricky on offense. If Saquon Barkley and the offensive line can get back to playing like they were in 2024, I do think they can be a Super Bowl team. Now, the passing game obviously is probably going to take a couple weeks to get clicking. But if we can play championship level defense, and like I said, Saquon and the offensive line can get back to like probably not as dominant in 2024, but at least playing to like a 75-80% level of that, I do think that they could be in Super Bowl conversations. And obviously Jalen just, playing free, not having to worry about forcing the ball to AJ Brown, getting the ball out on time, understanding the offense.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say Super Bowl or bust, but I will say that, like, if those things that are in place plays to the level that they should play to, I do think that there's a chance they could go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see, like you said, like if everything can click together, I don't see why we definitely won't be, in the mix with anyone else who's going to be there. I mean, so let's have a look at some of the other draft picks. So obviously we took in the second round we took Eli Stowers, the tight end from Vanderbilt. There's a lot of promise and praise around him. He's not a physical tight end, but he's going to be, he's going to be more of a, Grant Calcaterra, I suppose, but hopefully a little bit better with the run after catch and things. We've got that massive offensive tackle, Markel Bell from Miami. He is a huge unit. So obviously it'd be interesting to see what they do with him. I imagine he's not going to start a lot because I guess that's a future thing for obviously to replace Lane Johnson, hopefully. Now, one thing is obviously the quarterback from North Dakota State. Like we've gone and how he loves his guys from North Dakota State. Yeah, and he's a lefty as well. He's a lefty like myself and Ike, Cole Payton. So it's gonna be interesting to see what he looks like, because I absolutely forgot. Like I was saying to you guys, like he might not make the team or he'd be quarterback 3, but I completely forgot about Andy Dalton. Like they signed him, didn't they, in the off season? So I what's his place going to be on the team? Is he like sort of a safety net in case they trade Tanner McKee and then he becomes quarterback 2? I don't know. So I suppose they're going to see how that plays out in training camp. Maybe it's going to be like a battle to win that 2-3 spot and see what happens with Tanner McKee. And like you said, Cole, with the safety, now they drafted that safety out of Texas Tech, Cole.
I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah,
I'm not
Cole Wisniewski or something.
like
His name is.
Yes, Cole Wisniewski. I'm not saying that he could be a starter or anything, but I do like his game.
Yeah, he looks quite exciting. Obviously, there's an edge from New Mexico, Keyshawn James Newby, and then there's another. We signed that and drafted international pathway player from Africa. I think he's the first African player to be drafted, which is absolutely amazing. Bernard, you are Bernard, and I shared the video in the group, and he obviously had a very good relationship with the defensive. Well, what's the defensive tackles coach that we brought in from Seattle? Yeah, Clint Hurt. Like they seemed like they had a really good thing, and it was funny as that because he was like, "I'm going to walk to Philadelphia," and how he was like, "No, I'm going to send the plane." So like, but from pictures I've seen of the guy, he looks absolutely jacked, and what have you. And I don't see, if Clint Hurt was really high on him, then I don't see why the potential is obviously there for him to develop in time, like Jordan Mailata did on the offensive side of the ball. So that's really exciting. So do you guys have any other thoughts on like any of them, and like are there any other teams do you guys think that have made stronger in the draft by who they drafted? Because I was sitting there on draft night and I was saying to you, Cole, like, I really want someone from Ohio State this year so we could see what they look like in the Eagles. And all these guys were going off the board in the first round. Tackles, wide receivers, running backs. All these guys from Ohio State were going off the board. And I was like, who are we waiting for? I did not think of Mekhi Lehman, and so I was like, what is Howie waiting to do? So what do you guys think about that? Because I was getting worried in that first round. So what teams do you think have been made a little bit stronger, and how do you guys feel about the later round picks that we got in the draft?
Corey, I'll let you go first on this one, and then I'll play off what you say.
So I mean, I don't think anybody in our division got like, I mean, everybody in our division picked like the three best players, obviously from Ohio State. So like, I mean, I was excited about that, but I mean, not
Yeah.
excited about that. But I don't think anybody in our division got particularly better. I mean, like I feel like some teams around the league, like if you look at the Eagles, like direct competition, like Cowboys, Commanders, Giants, Lions, Rams. Like I don't think any out of all those teams, I do think that we had the best draft. But I mean, just looking back at the draft as a whole, like just what we did for like the entire, first through seventh round. Like I do like Markel Bell. Like he didn't give up a sack all year. Like he dominated in the college football playoffs. Like especially against Ohio State. Like we I don't even think we touched Carson Beck. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, he played left tackle at Miami. My guess is that I don't know if they'll probably try to cross train him or if they could eventually see him as, the left tackle of the future. Because what people don't realize is he was a third round pick, but it was the Jets' third round pick. So he was the third pick of the third. It kind of was like when we picked Tyler Steen. I honestly think they were like very similar picks. So it's not like he was like a later in the third round. So like they obviously liked this guy a lot and thought that he can contribute. I mean, Jalen Hunt contributed his rookie year. So I don't
Yeah.
know if they view this guy. I mean, we did re-sign Fred Johnson, so obviously Fred Johnson is probably going to be the first guy up. And they drafted some guys last year that I think that they like with Miles Hinton and Kent Williams. But Cole Wisniewski, I like him a lot. Like he was actually like one of my guys I had in this draft. Like I didn't know when exactly he would get drafted. Like I really liked his tape. What's funny is like I did think that he was very similar to Reed Blankenship. Me and Justin had a side conversation because Justin obviously was a real big fan of Dylan Thiemann from Oregon, and I said, "Hey man, like there's a guy that we can get later in the draft that's kind of similar to him. Obviously, he doesn't have the same traits, but I think that like this guy's going to make like a splash this year. Maybe not on like defense, but maybe like on special teams. Like I do think that like he will make the roster."
Yeah, definitely. It'd be interesting if they become the next like exciting whites or whatever. If they find a way, if he does, if he does show, if he is that good in training camp and Vic likes him, I can't see why Nod Fangio's not going to put him out there across from Cooper Jean, So that's gonna be very interesting. And like how he said, they're still not done. Obviously, there's time to go. So, do they bring in another safety? I don't know. We'll see. But obviously, they've drafted him for a reason to develop him, and we see how that goes. So, how do you feel, Drew?
Yeah, I think the thing for me in terms of other teams that I thought really, you talk about potentially like a path opening to be Super Bowl contenders and kind of raising the ceiling there. I thought the Rams did a lot of other NFC contenders favor by taking Ty Simpson when
Yeah,
they
that was a crazy pick.
when they did. Now I've seen Rams fans who are split. Like I've seen some who are like broken up about not getting Mekhi Lemon, which to me is really good sign and could potentially validate what the Eagles did. I've also, seen people who like it, but to me, when you're all in, when you got like a year or two left of Stafford in theory, I don't know. My outlook there typically is get an impact guy now and figure it out later. So like Sean McVay, Les Snead, I mean, they must have loved Ty Simpson. I don't look. I know like there was a big, to what kind of Corey said, I know there was like a big narrative about like, oh, look at like all these other NFC East teams like crushing it, doing well and all. Like I always say, like, look, like, I mean, most of them had top 10 picks. It's kind of hard, like, in that moment to mess it up, right? So, like, I mean, I do think with Harbaugh, the Giants, will be better and could be, like a sneaky wild card contender, but they've also been picking in the top 10 for basically every year for the past half decade and are still picking in the top 10. So I don't lose a ton of sleep over that. The late pick that we got excited about that I'm just excited to learn more about over the summer, see in the preseason games, is Micah Morris, the guard out of
Oh yeah.
Georgia. I mean, it seems like, like Mel Kiper and the draft experts were real high on him, played at a big time college program. And I'd love to see a camp competition between, open up between him, Tyler Steen, and even Drew Kendall, where Tyler Steen's not guaranteed that job. I guess I'm trying to think of the last time we had like rookie linemen like really like start for the Eagles prominently. I guess it's probably Landon Dickerson in 2021. So I don't know how likely it is that Micah Morris wins the job, but like to me,
it was Cam.
Go ahead, Corey.
It was Cam, because Cam started as a guard, is right.
Yeah, he was right guard. Yeah, that's right.
Did Cam start year one, or did he sit a year and then go to guard and then go to because it wasn't Sayamalu still on the team for the Super Bowl year?
You might be right. I
Yeah,
can't.
But I get
you might be right.
But the overall point being like with Micah Morris, like to me, like if you can pass block, like get in there between Cam and Lane, and let's go. I was excited about. That was the one pick that stood out to me that I'm pumped about.
Yeah, I wonder like how I wonder, because like it seems every year now that how he drafts a guy from Georgia, and and most of the time, obviously, it's worked out every year. He's done it, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, and I hope this guard, I think this guard will work out as well. I mean, Keely Ringo, that's a bit of a, I don't know, like, but. I wonder if next year is the year that we go without drafting a Georgia Bulldog. But I mean, that's the thing. Georgia are good every year, and how he's learned his lesson now, and he's drafting SEC guys. But I was hoping this would be the year that we take a Buckeye. But we'll see. I imagine the Buckeyes will be pretty decent in the new season. So we see what they look like, and But yeah, so obviously I was talking to you guys about the AJ Brown thing before we started. So, Elliot mentioned on WIP the other day that he was at the rookie mini camp. He was just there, saying hello, and I saw your tweet, Cole, about going to collect his belongings, collect his
Clean
stuff
out the locker.
Yeah, and so I wonder, like I was saying to you both, when AJ Brown was at Tennessee, and I don't know the exact numbers and the stats, but I don't think Ryan Tannehill got the ball to him a lot. And I think at the time there was a bit of frustration because he didn't get the ball a lot, because obviously you had Derrick Henry on the team, who was like at the time the number one running back in the league. He was very dominant. They were a physical team. Mike Vrabel preferred to run the ball. We've seen him running the ball a lot since he's been the coach of New England. In the Super Bowl, they started off running the ball, and then when they tried to pass it a little bit with Drake May, get a bit creative, Seattle's defense shut them down, and Seattle took over the game. So it's going to be interesting if AJ Brown, everyone is convinced around the league that New England is where AJ Brown is going, and we're going to get a first round pick and maybe a future first round pick or a future second round, whatever. We see what happens. But what do you guys think of if AJ Brown does settle in New England now? Do you think they're going to switch the offense up to appease AJ Brown, or do you think Mike Vrabel will stick to what he likes to do, which is run the ball, be a physical team? How do you guys feel? Corey, you've had a lot of thoughts about AJ Brown, the last few months, and so you've voiced your disdain for him a lot. So how do you think everything's going to shake out with AJ Brown?
So when AJ Brown was in Tennessee, obviously, like, their offensive coordinator was like Arthur Smith. So Arthur Smith obviously wants to run the ball a lot. Like, that's always been I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I think Arthur Smith was the coach when they drafted Bijan in Atlanta. Like, I think that was his
Yeah,
I think you're right.
I think that was his last year, and then obviously he went to Pittsburgh. But it's funny, Arthur Smith's at Ohio State right now as our offensive coordinator. But I think
that's right. Yeah,
I think him going to New England, I personally, I wish Howie would not trade him there. I wish that like another team would jump in. I don't care if it's the Chiefs, if it's the Browns, it's the Chargers. Like I really wish that we wouldn't just reward him because that's where he wants to go, and just like all the like extra stuff that's going on this off season. But I mean, like, I'm just to a point now where I'm just like over the whole AJ Brown thing. Like I'm just ready just to like put it in the rearview mirror. Like get Wicks in the building, get Hollywood Brown in the building, get obviously Lemon's already there with the rookie camp. Like just focus on the 2026, 2027 Eagles. Like and like that's my biggest thing with AJ Brown. Like I think AJ Brown as a player is great. I think he's an immense talent. I still think this year he can be a 5 to 10 best receiver in the league. My thing with him is like if you and the quarterback or you and the coach, whoever, if you guys aren't on the same page and there's nothing either one of you are doing to fix this and you're constantly letting leaks in the media and none of you guys are coming out saying that this isn't true, like I'm just like tired of that, and it's only with him. Like we don't hear from you know, oh, Devontae Smith isn't happy, or Saquon Barkley wants to get. It's only with him, and like I'm just
Yeah,
like sick of it and the drama that it like causes with just like the dissension. Of course, Jalen Hurts has to play better, but like playing like just because you're a good receiver and you're like elite at your position, that doesn't give you the right to like act out to get what you want. Like I mean, like
mm,
we all were raised by our parents or whoever. Like we're taught at a young age, like just like you don't throw temper tantrums to get your way. And like I just feel like what he's doing is like he's throwing a temper tantrum. He's did it a lot throughout the year, and like the Eagles have rewarded him over it. Like, oh, AJ has no targets in the first half. Okay, the second half we're gonna come out and give him 10 to 15 targets. Like, I just like don't like that way of like thinking of coaching or whatever. And I'm just ready to say good riddance. Get the young guys in here. Let the guys be ready to be motivated for this season. Work with the quarterback and like let's go play football.
yeah. It's mad because, like, you go back to the Super Bowl parade when AJ went up on the steps and he said his little speech and he said, they can say I'm a diva, but one thing they can't say, I'm an effing champion. And then the very next season, he goes out and acts, more or less like a complete diva. You know what I mean? So it's, yeah, like it hasn't been fun. It's not good. And I always thought that, like, when the first stuff was coming out about AJ Brown, there's frustrations and all this, and you started hearing things about him and Jalen not getting along and all this. I always thought, wow, if we ever lose AJ Brown, like we're going to struggle as a team to win games and what have you. And obviously we brought Saquon in and, we did win games without AJ because AJ was hurt at the beginning of the Super Bowl run and stuff. So it was, we can win without AJ Brown. And with the team we've got now and the draft and Lemon, I have full confidence that we can have a really good season. So how before we move on to the Phillies and the Sixers and the Flyers and stuff, how do you feel, Drew, about AJ Brown and how it's going to shake out and what he could look like in New England?
Yeah, I'll get to my bigger point in a second, but so something Corey said just popped into my head, and look, I'm sure he'll be great at Ohio State because most people are great at Ohio State, but I'm pretty sure the Eagles interviewed Arthur Smith during like the Doug firing like Sirianni cycle, and I mean, can you imagine? I feel like they dodged like a massive. I mean, I don't think he was a finalist, but they dodged like a massive bullet there. It just feels like he would have been a disaster as a head coach.
Right, I agree with that. I think he's more of a coordinator than a coach.
Yeah, some coaches are, aren't they?
Yeah, no, that feels like a classic one. Good coordinator, bad head coach. Yeah, I think your parade point is a great one, Adam. That's something I've been saying the whole time. I thought he had the best speech of the day that day, and
Yeah,
unfortunately,
it was really cool moment.
Totally, and unfortunately he kind of really like invalidated it like almost immediately after, so it's just a shame there. In terms of New England, I mean, again, you talk about like good coordinator, like bad head coach. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Josh McDaniels, but I think he's proven that he's competent as a coordinator, so I'm sure he's going to make it a focal point to get AJ the ball and to make sure Drake May's getting him the ball. I just feel like with AJ, to a lot of what Corey was saying, he just to me seems like a guy who is, kind of like, and I know the reports are that he is well liked in the locker room, but he just seems to me through like maybe a little bit of like self, like not destruction, but like his own actions, that he's just going to burn through places quickly. Like I think about some of like the, like legendary like Hall of Fame receivers of like, like the 2000s and all, like, right, like you could be Larry Fitzgerald, like you could spend your whole career in like, in one place, or you could be a guy like T.O., who was also great,
Yeah.
but who by the end would, go to a place for a year and just like wear out his, welcome and all, and then would end up being on another team. And like, like there's guys who have had very successful careers doing both of those paths. I just see AJ being a guy who, spends like 2-3 years in New England and then is, kind of just like, bouncing around a little bit, who's going to play for like 4 or 5 teams just because he decides he doesn't like this, or he doesn't like that, or the team's winning but his stats aren't good enough. So yeah, I'm excited for June 2nd. I mean, look, I hope the sides remain cordial where he comes back for like, like 10-year reunion in like 2034 and all, but I'm kind of excited to be liberated from all of it, and we can, move on and get this thing going for 2026.
Yeah, it's really it is a shame, sort of like, how it was all worked out, because like I always think back to the video on draft, on draft night, when how he drafted when he traded for AJ Brown, and you saw the video between him and Jalen, and they were like, let's do it, and they were both laughing, and to me that was like, you knew something special was coming, and then obviously we went on that great run, and to the Super Bowl, and they got there in the end, and they got their revenge against the Chiefs, and you've seen that clip of Jalen and AJ on the sideline talking about, that's why I wanted you to come here, so we could do this. We've been through the ups, we've been through the downs, but we've got it done. And it's just a real shame. And like you made a good point, Drew. Like the worst, because I really liked AJ Brown in the beginning before this shit started coming out, and the worst thing I would not want for AJ Brown is for AJ to become the James Harden of the NFL. You know what I mean? Because
It's a good
James
reference, yeah.
Harden, like his reputation, as he was a great player, but then he's developed this reputation since, where he just goes from team to team to team, and he doesn't get his way, and it doesn't work out the way he wants it, and then he bounces. You know what I mean? He's with Cleveland at the moment. If they lose now to the Raptors, because I think the Raptors have forced Game 7, I think, as well.
I think they
So
won
like,
last night. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if they lose now, you just know James Harden is going to go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So it's just, I'd hate for that similar thing to happen to AJ Brown, because he's too special of a player. He just needs to get his, I don't know, he just needs to adjust his attitude, and because he could go on, Cole.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. Let me go. Okay, so like I will say this: the thing with like the whole like Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown situation is that like Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown were never teammates, right? So it's like they were friends, and I'll use this scenario like with all of us, right? Like we're all buddies, we talk, we podcast together, but we actually like never like see each other on a regular basis. So it's like, hey, Drew, what's up? This is my guy, Adam's my guy, but like if we actually saw each other like every day, you might be like, well, Corey's annoying as hell. Like, what's wrong with this dude? Like, and that's like, it's like I feel like that could have been like the AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts dynamic. Like,
Yeah.
You're at Alabama, I'm at Ole Miss, you're at the Titans, I'm at the Eagles, and your friendship is good because you only see each other on weekends, summers. But then when you are actually together every day and you have to deal with like this type of personality, like that can like grind on someone if you actually aren't that type of like, able to deal with that. And I personally feel like the way Jalen Hurts is as a person, I think that like may have rubbed AJ Brown kind of like the wrong way, because I don't think Jalen is very like outgoing, and he's not very like like open. And I think AJ Brown might have like viewed it like, is like, dude, who you think you are, bro? Like I thought me and you do this, like so and that's just me speculating, but I think that could have been like how it was, and like the strong personality that AJ is, like AJ's going to speak out about that.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. I
Yeah.
feel like you need some general just like separation and like boundaries there. Like I always say, like I don't talk to my best friends like every day. Like my my text, like my phone is like open if they like need something and want to talk. But yeah, when you're around someone, you know 200 300 days of the year for 10, 12 hours a day. I mean, no, it's a great point.
Yeah, it's really good. I would be surprised if something like that doesn't come out in the future. Like when they, in 10 years' time when they're both retired and they go on podcasts and stuff, like, like we've spoken many times, now we're starting to see and hear things about T.O. and Donovan McNabb, about the issues that were there, and you hear Hugh talking about things on the midday show and stuff. And so, like, things will come out, and I think it would be very, like, sort of similar to what Corey has said. So Jalen is a very stoic and he's a quiet guy, and he's more of an introvert. And as like you said, AJ's a bigger, louder personality, and he's more outgoing than Jalen is and stuff. So we'll see. But yeah. So on to the Phillies, the Sixers, and the Flyers. It's been
Smorgasbord.
it's been a crazy couple of weeks for these three teams. More ups and downs. I'll say, there's been a lot of downs with the Phillies, and like you guys have seen, I've been going absolutely crazy on our Twitter and stuff because I've been so pissed off with this team. And like Cole, you have said, you just haven't got time for these guys at certain times because they're just so draining, and it's so deflating to try and watch a game. So that's where the Sixers and the Flyers are off to some nice little playoff runs now. And so we'll start with the Phillies. So obviously Rob Thompson was fired. We all saw it coming. It was needed. I wanted more change than that. You know me. I'm absolute nut job. I wanted Dave Dombrowski gone. I wanted John Milton to sell the team because I just think there's not enough. I just don't think obviously he hasn't got the money the Dodgers have got and things like that, which is fine. But to me, I just don't think he's made enough effort to push Dombrowski to make those big free agent signings that can get us over the hump, because the stagnant players that we've got, like Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott, and rather they just haven't played their part. So, we'll see. But Don Mattingly was put in charge. We all know Don Mattingly didn't want to have the job from all these different reports we've seen. Is obviously his son, his assistant GM. So it's a bit of, it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But he's given them that little spark, that boost the teams tend to have when the manager or the coach gets fired. And the Phillies, they won last night against the Marlins. They swept the San Francisco Giants, which was really good. And, they've been a lot better. So how are you guys feeling about the Phillies now that Rob Thompson is gone and they seem to be on an upwards, for the time being, an upward sort of slide instead of a downward slide?
Yeah, so go ahead, Corey. You go for it.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah,
So
you good.
one thing that I'll say is I've never been a huge Topper fan, so I don't think that it was Rob Thompson's fault, the slide of like the Phillies. I'll start by saying that. But one thing with like a coach like Nick Sirianni, and I've always said this throughout sports, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. One thing about Nick Sirianni is like people know that Nick Sirianni is kind of like cuckoo. But when you start off like that, you're able to like dial it back. One thing with the coach with like Rob Thompson is that Rob Thompson is not a very like aggressive manager. He's more of a laid back conversation style type of guy. So when your team is like not doing well and then you try to become like that like aggressive head coach or aggressive manager, your team's not gonna like, take it as easy, like, because that's not who you are. One thing about Nick is like that, but then he can dial it back. So when the team isn't playing well, if he goes back and acting crazy and yelling at his players, they know like that's actually who he is at his core. And one thing about Topper is like I think that his voice started to become very like, stoic and lethargic in the clubhouse, and they weren't really like listening to him. And that's why I said that they should have gotten rid of him at the end of last season, because I just feel like you see, like sometimes when you get a different voice, it sparks the team. So as you see this year, I know we won the first, game versus the Rangers. We look good. Sanchez out there on the mound. We were saying like they might go undefeated after that first game, which is crazy looking back how they played in the month of April. But I think that the move needed to be made, and I know you'll probably get more into like the Alex Cora and all the stuff how it was handled with Dombrowski. I still think that Dombrowski's seat should be pretty hot. Now, like if Madeline goes on, what's going to make this season very, very interesting is like baseball obviously has the peaks and the valleys and the ebb and flows of how the season goes. But if the Phillies is able to turn the season around and they start to play better, if Don Mattingly is really like interested in being the manager, because if they keep going on this run, like I don't see how you could just say like, yeah, I'm gonna switch and look for a different manager. Obviously we're still very early in the season to even start having these conversations. But like I think the move needed to be made. Obviously Bryce Harper's playing better. Jesus Luzardo looked great the last time he pitched. You know what I'm saying? You got Wheeler back. Stott and Marsh just look like now they know how to play baseball. They played well yesterday. The Giants series, we look good. So I do think that like we're kind of like peaking. We haven't even got to June yet, where Kyle Schwarber usually skyrockets.
Yeah, it goes off.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think that the season can be salvaged, but I am interested to see like how this plays out down the road. If Don Mattingly is actually interested in becoming a permanent manager, if they're able to go long term, or if we do turn back and look at Alex Cora, because like Buster Olney and all these guys are saying like Cora is pretty much going to be the next manager. It's not like matter of if, it's when.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Stupid camera.
How you
What's
doing?
up, boys? How y'all doing?
Yeah, you good?
Bro?
Man, just got back from this memorial. What the hell's going on with this camera? I tried to hurry back.
Flip yourself around.
Yeah. It's like that. We just got to the Phillies section. It's like the Phillies under Topper, just trying to get it. Trying to find some stable stuff.
Yeah. So Drew, obviously, before we get just on to give his thoughts, how are you feeling about the Phillies now with Don Mattingly?
Give me 1 second. The camera's screwed up.
Yeah, I'll talk for a little bit, Justin, and then you can jump in. Yeah, so something Corey said at the beginning really resonated with me about it. Felt like the team kind of like maybe tuning like Topper out and all. Like I was, I spent a couple summers in high school as like a camp counselor, and look, like I'm not like a yeller by nature. It's just not like how I like to communicate. But I remember like one thing my like supervisor always telling me was like he's like listen, he's like, it's a lot easier to loosen up than it is to tighten up. Be a hard ass for a couple days, make them respect you, and then once you kind of set that foundation, you can start pulling back and all. And we don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but it did feel to me like Topper almost just kind of like at one point decided like, okay, like these are veteran guys, I'm just gonna like trust them to do what they can do, as opposed to hammering some more just fundamentals and general like baseball stuff. Like you go back, like for the prime example is you go back to the wheel play last year against the Dodgers, and I actually think if the Phillies are swept and lose game 3 last October, that Topper's probably fired then. I think, obviously they played really well in game 3, and I think, that set up kind of the fluke Kerkering thing in game 4. And I think because of how it ended, where people could argue it was fluky, they kind of convinced themselves they were closer than they actually were, where I would have just done it. I think it would have made a lot of sense to just do it then and be able to, start totally fresh. Now, as it pertains to And I know, Adam, I know Dombrowski has been a big criticism point for you, and I totally
Oh,
get it. I would just say, as it pertains to like him and the Cora thing, and obviously, I think Justin can have a lot of perspective here because he, Cora with the Red Sox and all. I got bad news for you guys on the Dombrowski front as far as I read it. Like I took the Cora news getting out there so publicly as like Dombrowski kind of like, flexing, or as much as like a 67-year-old man can flex and be like, hey, listen guys, like this is still my show. Like I still have the trust of John Middleton and the authority to
That's a good
bring my
point.
guy in, and I'm not going anywhere
Like
unless I want to, kind of thing. And I don't think that's ideal, but that's kind of how I read that situation with Cora.
I didn't think of that, Drew. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, that's something I don't like what happened with the Alex Cora thing. I'll ask you now just about it. Like, I feel like it was really rushed in trying to bring him in. It was literally like the day after, 2 days after Rob Thompson was fired, and it all came out that Dombrowski had approached Cora and he told him, no, I want to spend time with my family. It's like the guy's just been fired. You know what I mean? He's been preparing all spring with Boston, and he's not even a quarter way through the season, and he was probably expecting to still be in his job. I don't know. They won the last game that he was fired, afterwards, and it was like it just seemed all so rushed. And like you said, Drew, it might have been a thing of like Dombrowski just wanted to get it out there that like, yeah, I've still got a lot of sway in this league, and so that shows John Middleton that he is important and what have you. So just like I'd ask you like how do you feel about how the Phillies have handled the Alex Cora thing? And like Corey's made some good points. Like if Don Mattingly keeps the Phillies, good now and keeps us above 500, and we get into the playoffs, do they still offer Don Mattingly that manager position at the end of the year if he wants it, or if Alex Cora is still out there and he hasn't been picked up by somebody? Because I imagine there'll be another team that'll be, it's Alex Cora. He's had a lot of success as a manager, so is there still a chance for the Phillies to get him? Or, how do you think the whole thing has played out with him? And do you think Dombrowski should have waited and done things a little bit differently?
Well, I think obviously looking at it now, yeah, it was time to fire Topper, unfortunately. But the thing with Cora that gets me, he talked to him Saturday night, offered him the job Sunday, and Thompson hadn't even been fired yet. That's kind of shady in my opinion. You've not fired your manager and you're out here offering it to him. But going back to Drew's point with Dombrowski, Cora's not going to take a job with the Phillies not knowing if Dombrowski's going to be there or not, because they're guys. You know what I'm saying? They're buds. Dombrowski brought Cora to Boston. So if you're a manager with as much cachet, I guess, that's going to be out there this upcoming off season as Cora, he's going to have his pick of jobs that are available, and some that may not even be available. There's going to be teams like, hey, would you be interested? If we kick this guy out the door, would you be interested in coming? So Cora's a great manager, absolutely great manager. I know there's all the stuff with the cheating scandal that he kind of developed and started in Houston, and then kind of brought it to Boston in 2018 to help win that World Series. But like I said, I think he's a great manager. He helped lead the Sox to the playoffs again last year after they traded Rafael Devers, another cornerstone that the franchise just pissed away like it was nothing, just like they did with Mookie Betts, sending him to the Dodgers. But yeah, I don't think Cora even thinks about coming to Philadelphia if he's thinking Dombrowski may not be long for this job. So I don't think Dombrowski's going to get fired anytime soon. Unfortunately, like with a lot of what Philly fans are saying, hope Dombo's next and all this, because you're not going to let him make a hiring like that without him being the guy. And same as like what you were saying, going back to Mattingly. What if this turns out like it did in 22 when they fired Girardi and moved Topper up? What if they go on a magical run and make it to the NLCS? That's
right. That right there will make things interesting, because I do think that Dombrowski's already made up in his mind that like, hey, like this is Cora's job, because I don't think Don Mattingly wants to be like a long-term manager. But like things change, you know what I'm saying? Like you said, if they go on like this magical run, like Mattingly could change his mind and say, hey, you know what? I do want to be the manager. How do they? Because like the fan base is going to want you to stick with Mattingly. Like the fan
Yeah,
base is going to be supporting that. They're not going to want you to go to court. Like, you know,
rightfully so, because it all ties back. I hate to say it, but it all ties back to like things the way it happened in 22, and it was farther along in the season in 22 when they fired Girardi, obviously. But what if Mattingly? What if winning changes? His last managerial job was in Miami, one of the worst run organizations in baseball right now. All right, so you're not going to, that's really going to push you down and stuff. But he was a bench coach in Toronto last year, who were 2 outs away from winning the daggone World Series. But if he gets
Yeah.
in with his team and they're really clicking and moving things along, he might get that fire back and they make a deep run into the playoffs or something, or maybe somehow make the World Series. He might get that itch, be like, yeah, this is fun when you're winning. You're not coaching for an organization that's a shithole like Miami. It's an
Yeah.
organization that wants to spend money, it wants to spend resources and everything like that. So it's going to be a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation in the off season, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really reaching here, but let's just say, like, I think ideal scenario, like they get super hot, they win the World Series, Mattingly retires, gets his championship, and then you hire Cora or something. Because to your guys' points, if they get close, I can see it getting in Dombrowski's head of like, well, I gave Topper this job after 2022 when we got close, but maybe I should have realized that was the best we were going to be under him, and now's the time to bring in my own guy. So I mean, look, that's pie in the sky reaching, but that would be the perfect utopia world there.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Like, I hate the New York Yankees, but I love and respect Don Mattingly. Like, that guy is an all-timer, in my opinion, and back injuries is what killed his career toward the end. But you look at that guy's stats from 83 up to, I think, maybe 89 or 90, something like that. He was one of the best in the American League, guys. I mean, batting titles, MVPs. And unfortunately, like I said, I hate the Yankees, but right after he left is when they won their first World Series after he retired, But I'd love to see Mattingly get. I was obviously, the Dodgers. I don't want to see them win, but I was pulling for Toronto to win just to see Mattingly get a World Series last year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were all pulling for the Blue Jays, and like if Jeff Hoffman had gone a couple of different pitches, right, then like you said, they would have won the World Series. But yeah. So like speaking of, I think you hopped on the perfect time, just so. Speaking of like getting hot in the playoffs. The Flyers, they are flying. I mean, we don't talk hockey much on this pod, and I'll admit I've never been a big hockey, know it all or anything. And but obviously the Flyers are a Philly team, and we support the Philly teams. And I'm really happy for what the Flyers are doing. Jonesy has gone in there. He's slowly turning the organization around. Obviously, he's still got a lot more work to do. But nobody, I don't think, quite expected. Even it's a young core. Mishkov and Porter Martone. These guys have really stepped up at the end of the season to get them that push into the playoffs, and they've got past the Penguins, and now they're on to round 2, and it's game 1 tonight, and then we've got the Sixers game 7, the first game 7 against the Celtics. Joel Embiid somehow comes back from having his appendix removed just over 3 weeks ago. Yeah, unbelievable. And like I said to Corey before we started, I know he's going to be happy if we can push the Celtics out of the playoffs tonight. So how do you guys, I'll start with you, Just. So how do you guys feel about, I know we don't talk basketball a lot, but, I got my Sixers hat on today because I weren't expecting them to get the Celtics rattled like they have in this series. And even with Embiid coming back, they did really well. So how do you feel, Just, about the Flyers and the Sixers and this nice little playoff run that they're both a part of at the moment?
Well, I don't know shit from Shinola about hockey. I really started getting into it during the Olympics, watching the Olympics, and I started watching more NHL during then. I would message and text a couple of my buddies up there who are huge hockey guys, getting tips on how to, because I have a hard time even following the puck, but I've really
Yeah, I
gotten
know
into
it's,
it.
it's
And
so small.
It's a lot
yeah,
better
and
live. It's a hard sport on TV sometimes.
Yeah,
exactly. That's
I'd
what
love to see it live, definitely.
everybody says. It's better live, but don't follow the puck. They say don't try to follow the puck because it moves too fast. But anyway, I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I'm getting into it just like I would, a daggone football game or a baseball game. It's fun as hell watching this young group of guys. Uh, I don't know what they're going to do against Carolina in a tip. If anybody's going to call the afternoon show, do not get into the weeds on the hockey question because they will rip your ass from limb to limb, just like they did me yesterday. I asked the question, hey, does Hathaway play game one and you get forced or a break because he's not played as well? And I can spike like, what the hell are you asking us this for? You're going too deep into the weeds on this hockey. But
It's a Broads question.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. But no, I think they can push it 6-7 games. Whether or not they win, everybody I've talked to, Carolina is the team to beat in the East pretty much. But hey, this is a
Right.
young team that can go on a great run. They've got all the confidence in the world. And with the
Yeah.
Sixers, it's like their confidence keeps building too. I would love it to see the Sixers win the daggone NBA championship for all the fans up in Philadelphia that have suffered throughout this process. What's it been, 10 years that it's
Yeah.
been going on? To see it finally come to fruition when everybody's like, it's over. When Embiid has the appendix issue, and you're like, yeah, this is par for the course. This guy's just cursed. The basketball gods hate us for what we've done with getting this guy going through the process, but he's came back. It's like he's not melted down and caved in on himself like he has in playoffs past. But it would tickle me to death. I'm not the biggest basketball guy in the world. I'm not. But hey, I'd love it for all the fans of Philly to see Sixers championship. It'd be amazing.
Yeah. Drew, Cole, how are you feeling about the Flyers and the Sixers?
So I will probably say this. I don't know anything about hockey at all, other than the puck is black. They play on ice. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, I'm going to support the Flyers. So like my dad grew up in Allentown, PA. He actually lives in Philly right now, so he's all 4 for 4. So obviously I support the
Nice.
Flyers from a distance. The Sixers, honestly, I hate Boston. I hate all things Boston sports. I hate the Red Sox. I hate the Patriots. I hate all things Boston. So this would actually be amazing. I will say this, if I had to put money on it, and I was a betting man, I would say that I don't know if the Sixers will win, just because history has always been against them in these scenarios. Forever, Joel Embiid, so if this was going to be the time to get it done, this honestly, you'll probably think this is crazy for me to say this, but this is huge hot take. This will probably be the biggest upset that they've had in Philadelphia sports history since the Eagles in 2017 when they beat the Patriots. It will be
definitely
that level of upset. I mean, the 7th seed, they haven't beat Boston since the 80s in a playoff series. The 7th seed versus the 2 seed, it will be that level of upset, and I hope they're able to pull it off. I mean, you got the 2 young guns with VJ, and you got Maxey. You know what I'm saying? You got Joel Embiid, Paul George playing defense. You know what I'm saying? You got Bona. If they can defend, and what they did last game, I like Nick Nurse as a coach. I know he gets a lot of heat from a lot of callers. Spike, all they're not big fans. Rhea, she's not a big Nick Nurse fan. I like Nick Nurse. I mean, he won the championship with Toronto. I mean, I get it. They traded for Kawhi Leonard, but I feel like from top to bottom, you can make a debate that this team is just as talented as that team. They just haven't played a lot together. So obviously, the more you play together, the better it's going to be. I hope they pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be massive because, like you said, Cole, we haven't beaten them since the 80s in playoffs. Never won a game 7 against the Celtics. So it would be, and Embiid seems to have come back at the right time. Maxey, VJ Edgecombe is just absolutely awesome. Paul George has played better since he's come back from his suspension. And I was really unhappy with, how Paul George handled everything, during that. But he's come back, he's dug in, and he's performed. So you got to respect that. And you got to respect Embiid for toughing it out. He's got to still be playing in a lot of pain. You know what I mean? Like what he's recovering from, you know, he must still have stitches and what have you there. And I don't know how they're treating it, but he's got to be moving around in pain and stuff. And it just shows that the guy is tough, you know, and he does want to do something for his teammates, for Philly,
Yeah.
which you got to appreciate. So before we finish, Drew, what's your thoughts on the Flyers and the Sixers, and can the Sixers get it done finally against the Celtics tonight?
Yeah, so I think for me, and this is something we can, all four of us can probably relate to, right? Like when the Eagles season ends, like when that ball fell incomplete against the Niners, like I go into like a 2-week depression, like outside of being a parent and just doing like the basic things I have to do at work. Like I'm a shell of a human. Like I'm the same way when the Phillies season ends.
Yeah.
Like if the Sixers lose tonight, if the Flyers lose in the second round, like I will not be like that. Like I just don't like process it and like feel the pain as deeply. But I'm excited for all the people who do, for those two teams, that they're having those moments now, that, you know, you have, you know, the Sixers making this run. You have Cam York throwing the stick the other night. I think the Flyers, I think the big key against the Hurricanes is they need to generate some first period goals. Carolina basically just like dog walked through their first series. I don't think they were ever even trailing in a game. So I mean, look, deep cut here. Let's get some revenge for, you know, the 0-3 Eagles for the NFC Championship game against the Panthers. I think if the Flyers can take one in Carolina, they gotta, you know, the tight turnaround's tough. I think it's, you know, kind of like Bush League by the NHL that, you know, they're playing tonight. And I guess for context for everyone, we're recording on Saturday morning, but I'm excited. And I think, like, look, the Sixers, I mean, I think Justin could, you know, especially maybe appreciate this, and, you know, he could tell me if it feels totally different, but it reminds me a little bit, like the stakes aren't quite as high, but it reminds me a little bit of like 04 Red Sox Yankees. Like here's this team that's just like so many different versions of the same team that's just tormented you, and, you know, now's your chance to finally, you know, knock them off when no one expects it. So I forget who hit the grand slam for the Sox, I think in like the first or second inning in 04. I think that was something, but hopefully,
Johnny
you know,
Damon.
the Sixers. Who's that?
Johnny Damon.
Okay, I thought I was thinking in my head it was maybe Damon, but then I don't want to say. I'm like, wait, I'm going to say the wrong name if I say it. So yeah, man. Hopefully, you know, the fans can have, you know, who've been riding through that process, who rode through the doldrums of the Flyers night in, night out, can have, you know, more of those moments. I'm excited for them and excited to, you know, be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love it for Broads as well, because Broads is a big Sixer. As much as he is all you know, he's Flyers, you know, in his blood, and I know he loves the Phillies, but I know he's a big Sixers guy as well. So I'd love it for Broads as well, because I don't think he's going to be able to breathe tonight and when you know, during this series.
What's exciting, sorry, is like, my bad, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And every time you talk, it's like I pause and then I start talking too. So
go on.
So what's exciting about the Sixers is that obviously you got to get through the night, but if you upset Boston, like there's a pathway to where like they could go to the finals. And I know obviously it's like a really deep cut, because obviously like you would pay, like I think in the next round you would play the Knicks, you know what I'm saying? So like obviously like you would have the New York Philadelphia rivalry again, that, you know, would be so great to see. And then you would get the winner of Toronto. So like Toronto and Cleveland is game 7, and then obviously Orlando and Detroit's also game 7. So there's a potential that if you get past New York, you could be seeing Cleveland or Orlando in the Eastern Conference Finals. And like I said, I know like we've had this with the Atlanta Hawks before, where it's like sitting right there and the Sixers didn't get it done. But like there's that chance that could be served right up on the platter, where you could make a debate that the Sixers would be the most talented team remaining in the playoffs, and they'd be the 7th seed.
Yeah, definitely.
So what if it falls this way and you have to face the Knicks, and then Toronto gets the win, you're going to be exercising all your demons. You have the opportunity to do that because
Yeah.
Toronto, that shot, that bounce that Kawhi took, New York's been a thorn in their side for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, they would possibly quite be the better team out of all of them when you look at it. And they're just now starting to play together.
Right. And like what's good about the NBA is that the NBA doesn't reseed like the NFL do. Like obviously the high seeds always play the lower seeds. So like in the NBA, it's not like that. So like you would just play whoever's the next team in the bracket, you know. So like you could be the 7th seed playing the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference Final, you know, like
Nick Nurse Revenge Series, Sixers Raptors, Eastern Conference Finals.
That's true.
Oh man. That would be massive, and it's something that needs to be done because even, you know, like say they get past the Knicks, they get past the Raptors, and they lose in the final or whatever. I think to a lot of fans, to all of us who've like gone through the process and stuff, it'll be a moment where we can at least say that something good has come out of it at the end. You know what I mean? They were able to get past the Raptors, get past the Knicks, and get to a final again. You know what I mean? So it's something that can be done. And like you all said, on paper, if the Sixers get past the Celtics tonight, we should be the best team in the Eastern Conference. You know, so we see how it goes. So just before we go, obviously me and Corey and Drew, we were talking about the Eagles and the draft and AJ Brown. So I just want to get your quick thoughts before we wrap up on the Eagles and the draft and stuff.
I loved it. I loved the Mekhi Lemon pick. The number is something else. You're going to have 6 on one side and 9 on the other side. There was a caller on the afternoon show that I think he should have went with Lemon and then the number 8, like Lemonade. That would have been great, but he's probably heard that a lot in his life anyway. But I think the trade for Grenard's big. That's going to be huge because he's an older guy. He's going to be able to help mentor Jalen Hunt and some of these other guys. He's going to be playing with the best line he's ever played with. And then you get the second round pick. Shit, escaping my name.
Stowers.
Yes, Stowers.
That
kid, he can't block for nothing. But if anybody wants to go back and look at some Vanderbilt tape, they run a lot of screen stuff, and that kid will stop block the hell out of you. Like he will lay in the weeds and he will crack back on your ass. He don't care to hit, but he can't just do great one-on-one blocking. I was reading an article where Jordan Matthews, where he's a coach at Vanderbilt now, and he said that he implemented some stuff that the Eagles did for Zach Ertz when they got Eli Stowers. He said, this guy reminds me a lot of one of my teammates in Philadelphia. We should do some of the stuff that we done with him. And I think that kid's going to be great. I really do. Now, he's, like I said, he's not a blocking tight end. That's something he's really going to have to work on. But something I know it's everybody's like, oh, you're full of shit. But this Uar Bernard guy really intrigues me, man. 7th round pick out of Nigeria, 6'4", 300 pounds, runs a 4.6 40, broad jump like 10 foot something or another. And the thing about it is, I think this guy's dad passed away when he was 19 or something like that. He's hungry. He wants to work. He's going to be working with Clint Hurt. And this guy, if anybody went back and watched the draft video when he was drafted, I love that stuff.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So he's just kind of like, talking to Howie and then talking to Lurie. When he got on the phone with Clint Hurt, that guy went up. He was like, yes, coach, yes. Yeah. Like, Hurt worked him out at the international combine stuff. He built a relationship with that kid, and that's going to be something huge for that guy. So like I said, I know everybody's talked about it, and they're like, the chances are slim and none, but I don't give a damn, man. That kid, if he's on defensive line, it's nowhere near as tough to learn what he's got to learn as it was for Jordan Mailata as playing tackle.
What's funny about Clint Hurt is, like, I do think that there's a chance that Clint Hurt could be like the Aaron waiting to Vic Fangio if he was to walk away.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
very well. Yeah, very well.
Yeah, I think that's he wasn't he the defensive coordinator in Seattle?
I think first season.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Yeah. So
for 1 year.
It's definitely we all know there's a there's a clock on Vic Fangio. You know, we might have 1-2 more years out of Vic, and he might retire then. You know, so you know we see how that goes. But yeah, Jess, I'm glad you were able to hop on with us, and thanks for jumping on with
Sorry I
us.
was
I
late,
know.
boys.
No, I know you've had like
You good?
you know, a family gathering and stuff this morning, so I appreciate it. So yeah, guys, thanks as always. This was a really good pod, and lots of exciting things. Big night tonight in Philly sports. We'll be back soon. You know, I guess the next time we'll get together will probably be training camp and see what happens with AJ Brown once that breaks and stuff. So we'll be back soon with another pod. And but yeah, thanks, and go Birds, go Phillies, go Sixers, go Flyers.
Go Flyers. Love
Do it.
y'all. I mean it.
Yep.